The Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we are going to go over what's coming up on the horizon, a few news stories, some trailers that came out this week, and then in our full spoiler segment, we will be discussing Dream Scenario. This is the Nic Cage movie where he just starts popping up in people's dreams. So we're going to talk about all of that. Let's get started with On the Horizon.
On the horizon.
On the Horizon is where we talk about what's coming up in the next week or so. I believe in last week's podcast, we had talked about Chucky, the rest of the new season coming out, or it was about to come out. Well, it's coming on April 10th on USA and SyFy, and the next day on Peacock. So that's when Chucky is coming out. It's real close. Then on Thursday, April 11th, Fallout starts on Amazon Prime. That's exciting because...
That's exciting. That looks good.
Fallout looks great.
It's got Kyle MacLachlan.
It's got slightly questionable pedigree, but, you know, that's good and bad traits.
It's Jonathan Nolan producing. It's got some talent behind it. It's got Jonathan Nolan producing. In front of the camera, we got Kyle MacLachlan and Walton Goggins.
Sign me up.
Yep.
I'll check it out. If it's not good, then it's not good, but I'll check it out for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Then on Friday, April 12th, Franklin, which is a new limited series about Benjamin Franklin, is coming to Apple TV+. Good Times, which is an animated reboot of the Norman Lear series, the late Norman Lear. His old series Good Times being rebooted as an animated project, coming Friday, April 12th to Netflix. Civil War is coming on April 12th to movie theaters. This is the one that was done by Alex Garland, not the Marvel one. And Arcadian is also coming out on Friday, April 12th. This is the new Nic Cage horror film, and that's also coming to theaters. So that is what is coming up on the horizon. And now we're going to move on to On Beat.
On Beat.
This week on Beat, we've got 5 trailers we're going to discuss, but before that, we have 2 pieces of fairly interesting news, both Marvel-related. We're going to start things off with Julia Garner from Ozark has been cast as Shalla-Bal, the Silver Surfer, in the Fantastic Four. So, as is the case with a lot of Marvel characters, there's like the character, meaning the character's name, like say Logan, and then there's the character with the character title, meaning Wolverine. There have been multiple characters as Wolverine. Not all of them are Logan, you know? Logan is the main one that we all know and love, but there have been other ones, and this is a different version of the Silver Surfer, and it's going to be in the Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously confirms that Galactus is going to be the villain.
Yeah, seems to be. Julia Garner is fantastic in Ozark. I've seen her in a few other things, but in Ozark in particular, she's fantastic, so it'll be interesting to see. I don't know anything about this version of the Silver Surfer. I don't know what the personality of that character is supposed to be like or anything, so.
Nope, no clue.
Don't know, but,
kind of an odd choice, but okay.
A great actress.
Yeah.
And then the other piece of Marvel news we got is that Sam Raimi has expressed interest in directing Avengers Secret Wars. This came out, he was at WonderCon, which is a comic book convention, and he was promoting Boy Kills World, which we'll be talking about a little bit later as well, which is a movie that he's producing, not directing. But showing up to WonderCon as a producer of that movie, he was asked about, you know, doing another Marvel movie, and he mentioned Avengers Secret Wars as one.
Oh, yeah, he wants to get paid to do an Avengers movie. I mean, that's not really out there. It's like, oh yeah, I want that payday. Like, I think he genuinely loves the genre, loves the characters, and would love to do it. I don't think Marvel's going to go in the Sam Raimi direction for an Avengers movie. I definitely think if he does another movie with Marvel, it's most likely going to be the next Doctor Strange to continue with what he was doing in Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's just a thing. It's just
the Russo brothers started off with Winter Soldier, and then Civil War, and then they did the two biggest Avengers movies.
Yes, they did. I mean, we'll see.
We'll see, but it would be awesome.
Just saying it's optimistic.
Yeah. There's no news that he was picked. It's only news that he expressed interest.
No, I mean, he expressed interest, which is he was asked about it. It's almost non-news, really, because, you ask anybody in Hollywood, oh, do you want to direct an Avengers movie? They're gonna say yes.
Martin Scorsese?
Martin Scorsese is gonna be like, I'll make it cinema.
It's like Avengers Taxi Driver.
Yes.
But yeah, that's it for the regular news, and then we've got some trailers to talk about. First, we've got a trailer for Bodkin, which you perfectly described to me earlier when we were talking about what we had coming up in the show notes, because I didn't remember which trailer this was. I'm like, remind me, which one was Bodkin? And you had the perfect summary for it, which was
film adaptation of that episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah, from the most recent season of Black Mirror, there was an episode where this documentary filmmaker shows up. He wants to make this other documentary, but he's with his girlfriend, and they're there, and she finds out that this whole thing had happened in this quiet English village, that there's some murders that happened or something, and then it ends up, like, the documentary shifts to that, and that's kind of what's going on. Yeah, they end up, like, shifting to trying to do, like, a true crime podcast about, like, this mystery. And that's kind of what's happening here. There's a small Irish town, there's some kind of seedy thing going on underneath the surface, but a lot of the movie is playing on kind of the impoliteness of the town, the kind of like the grumpy town being upset that these people are kind of invading their space. Yeah, well, it also just play off the fact that like these filmmakers are outsiders, and they're kind of like it's intruding. Also playing up like a dark comedy. Yeah, it's taken like more of a comedic angle than like a Black Mirror angle. I mean, Black Mirror is technically listed as a comedy too in the UK, so true. Dark comedy. Black Mirror stuff like varies wildly depending on the episode, really. It's just no, I mean even before the lighter hearted stuff came out on Black Mirror, it was always considered a comedy for some reason. The episode itself wasn't very comedic. No, but it's considered like a black comedy, like just very dark comedy. I get what you're saying, and that's kind of what this movie looks like too. Like it looks like there's humor in the kind of the town just not wanting these people there, and that kind of like rude behavior of it, and it's got Will Forte as one of the podcasters, so you got the comedic chops in play there. I mean, it looks interesting. Oh yeah. Next up, we got a new trailer for Boy Kills World, as if we needed to be sold any more on this. We got, Bill Skarsgård had, the new Crow movie, which I'm not sold on, but then he has this movie, which kinda is in a similar vein of like a, action. This looks like it's gonna be like the better Bill Skarsgård, revenge action thriller. Yeah, definitely. This looks a lot better. We talked about this before when the last trailer came out, how cool it was that they're doing the whole inner monologue or whatever. Yeah. You got H. Benjamin, and like the inner monologue is like very comedic. Yeah. I like how they showcase that more in this trailer too. With all the parts where like the guys like explain the plan, and because like the main character is like deaf and mute, he's just like staring, and you're hearing his inner monologue going, I should be getting this. This seems like it's important. It's like, oh crap, it's the plan. It is important. Yeah, this looks great. I'm excited for it, and the new trailer makes it look even better than it did before, if possible. Yeah. That's coming out this month, so man, this month we have Boy Kills World and Monkey Man both coming out. Oh yeah. Crazy. So two what's looking to be top tier action films. Yeah, absolutely. From what we're hearing from people who've seen them, seem to be top tier action films. Too, so, Final judgment cannot be made until I watch, but yes. Yes, exactly. Next, we got a trailer for Dead Boy Detectives. We had a little bit of a teaser before, and what kind of made Dead Boy Detectives interesting to me was just who was making it rather than anything we'd seen from it. That it's, based on the Neil Gaiman property, and that Neil Gaiman's directly involved in the adaptation. Yeah. That was what was interesting, less so what we'd seen of it. But this trailer turned things around on that side, because now the trailer itself looks good. Like, even not knowing who's involved, I would be looking forward to this. Oh yeah, absolutely. It stands on its own. It's not like, oh please,
okay, it's the trailer, but it should be good because Neil Gaiman, right? Like, it's like, no, this looks good. And then you find out, oh, this is based on Neil Gaiman? Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense why this looks so good. You know, it's like kind of the opposite way around there.
The other kind of crazy thing that I spotted is that there's a moment in the trailer where it says that they cheated death, and it shows this black woman, and it's just kind of a real quick kind of cut. And I was like, wait a minute. I think that's Kirby from who played Death in Sandman on Netflix. And before we start the podcast, I looked it up, you know, when we were talking to sum up what we're going to do. And it is, in fact, Kirby in the role of Death in this trailer, at least, in this scene. So I don't even know if he's actually in the show or if they just used a clip from Sandman to tell us that this is in the same world. But the cool thing is that we've now been told that this is in the same world as Sandman, the Netflix show. So we got those kind of together now, which is really cool because Sandman was quite good.
Oh, yes, it was. For sure.
Yeah. And so this is looking good, looking better than what we'd seen from footage before. All the supernatural stuff looks really cool. The characters look fun and interesting. They have a good dynamic with each other. Yeah. The whole thing just looks good. I'm excited for this. I'm really excited for this, actually. Next up, we got a trailer for Cuckoo. This is not related to the British TV series that starred Andy Samberg as like this hippie-ish guy that dating the daughter of this Englishman. This isn't related to that series if you've ever seen it. This is a horror film, and it stars Hunter Schafer from Euphoria.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks all kinds of creepy.
Yeah, sufficiently creepy. It also has Dan Stevens in it from Legion.
Yeah, Dan Stevens is also, like, really talented.
Yeah, it's just a very creepy horror film where there's just a lot of shit going on, and it seems like there's some kind of a species of monster or ghost or something, and it's starting to rise up within this town or something. I don't even know how to describe the full details of what's in it, because a lot of it's just kind of vague and around the corners of what's happening, but it looks pretty good.
Dan Stevens from Legion, and also he replaced Justin Roiland as the lead voice in Solar Opposites.
Mm-hmm. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's hilarious because, like, Dan Stevens replaced Justin Roiland as Corvo, and, like, he's not even, like, attempting to, like, do a Justin Roiland voice. He's just, like, using his normal, like, British accent, and they explained it like, they used some device on Corvo and it changed his voice. And they're just like, yep, that's my voice now. Don't question it. No way to change it back.
It's also funny because they went from Justin Roiland, who's the only reason he's in the show is because was a writer on it, you know, creator of the show, just like with Rick and Morty, to an actually, like, well-known actor.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Not the other way around.
Right. Yeah.
This reminds me of the meme about replacing Roseanne and Roseanne where they have like it was a picture of Christopher Plummer and it just said Roseanne. With like the Roseanne font.
That's awesome.
Because he'd replaced Kevin Spacey when Kevin Spacey was canceled in some movie. And then
that's right.
That was the joke was that when Roseanne Barr was canceled that like, you know, just replace her with Christopher Plummer.
Yep, okay. Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, that was hilarious.
And then the last trailer we got this week is for The Last Stop in Yuma County, which looks kind of a little Tarantino-esque, like idea of this small diner stop, and there's some crime going on, and there's some people being held hostage, and big ensemble cast with everybody having their own motives. And
I really like the trailer, and also like not knowing anything about the movie going into the trailer. Like I think it's gonna be like this intense, like, you know, thriller with this guy holding a diner like of people like hostage, and then it just turns into like the Hateful Eight.
Yeah,
like, yeah.
Yeah, just very Tarantino-esque, like just lots of different moving parts, and
because like everybody ends up like having a gun and having like their own motives and stuff, and then suddenly, like, the one guy at the trailer, which, you know, like, they suggested held all the power, like, no longer does, like, nobody holds, like, all the power in that situation anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks cool. It looks really good.
Yes, it does.
And that is it for our On Beat segment. And that leaves only full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we're going to be talking about A Dream Come True. We're going to be talking about a Nicolas Cage movie where Nicolas Cage just starts popping up in people's dreams. So you told me you'd seen this at first, and I hadn't seen it yet. And you just said, it's really weird. And then I went to my dad's
it's
and
a strange
we needed
movie.
a movie to watch, and I mentioned this one, and we watched it, and it is indeed a very strange movie.
You know that trend recently where like they're taking like, you know, well known and loved like movie concepts and just turning them into horror movies, like It's a Wonderful Knife, or, you know, like Happy Death Day or whatever.
Yeah.
This is like that in reverse. Like somebody said, let's do Nightmare on Elm Street, but let's make it like a dramedy starring Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. There's even there's a direct reference to Nightmare on Elm Street later on in the movie.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
With the magazine cover.
With the magazine cover. Yeah. It ends up like, it ends up being a strange movie. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed what it was like going for.
Since this is a little bit lesser known of a movie from some of the stuff we normally talk about, we should probably kind of explain like what it is.
Yeah, we should
kind of just
explain
very briefly describe
boilerplate concept. Basically, it's about this college professor, this middle class, no name college professor,
Milquetoast.
Milquetoast. He has an average life, you know, like he's an average upper middle class person, you know. He has a wife, he has a daughter.
It's implied at several points that he's kind of a loser, and that's kind of how other people see him.
Yeah, kind of like, it's implied that like, other people, like, he has like a colleague that hosts like these parties for like all of his friends, and like he's never invited to any of these like exclusive parties. And it's revealed like, you know, because like they kind of hate him, and like, you know, like, but he's like oblivious to that for some reason.
Yeah, his students don't really respect him or anything.
Yeah, his students don't really respect him. Yeah, he's kind of a loser. He's just living like this boring existence, you know. And then like the weirdest thing starts happening. He starts appearing in everybody's dreams. And at first, like, people are describing it, he's not doing anything in those dreams except standing there, you know?
Yeah.
And like, he's
taking offense to that a little bit because they're saying basically like, oh yeah, in my dream I'm floating away and I'm desperately trying to reach the ground.
I'm in some kind of like peril, and he shows up and he just stands there.
Yeah, doesn't do anything.
And he's kind of like, you know, why would I just stand there? You know, like, that doesn't make any sense. You know, like,
there's a great part where he's talking to his class after a bunch of the people in the class were there because he was in their dreams, and he's asking people to describe their dreams, and they're all the ones where he's just standing there, and he's like, is anybody, any of my dreams, anybody like, am I doing anything else but just standing there? And like, everyone just goes quiet.
Yeah, everybody just goes quiet. Yeah, he's desperate to find like somebody's dream, like where he does literally anything. And because of this like phenomena, which by the way, the movie never tries to explain this phenomena, you know, like,
well, so like, kind of at the end, they kind of do. They don't really like fully explain it. The very end of the movie, they kind of suggest that it's now like something that other people can do.
Yeah, they have this weird thing. Yeah, at the end, which we'll get to it. That's like some whole like weird like twist that comes out of nowhere. Like, there's no explanation for this. It makes him famous, and you know, like, it's weird, but like, he kind of like starts to like enjoy like the instant celebrity.
He enjoys the celebrity, but he wants to use it in a way that like makes him look good, and nobody really cares about that. They only care about the fact that
they only
it's
care
just
about
weird.
Yeah, he wants to use it in a way that he also wants to use it to like further like his goal of getting like this academic, you know, book published.
Intelligence.
Intelligence. You know, like, there's like another colleague he's talking to, a woman who he's jealous of because, you know, she's writing articles in the field and stuff, and I think he went to like school with her. And he's arguing with her because she's like, oh yeah, you weren't even like interested in this field, you know, back in the day. And it's clear like he's jealous of her like success in this field. That he wants that success. And he's trying to like, there's this whole thing where he goes to like this publicist, you know, office and
like, played by Michael Cera.
Michael Cera. And they're only interested in like using him for advertising, and he's like trying to like get them to like get his book published, and they're not like really interested in that, but they like kind of agree to it. So they just like want to use him for advertising, and then like there's a woman there who's like interested in him because she had like a sexual encounter with him in one of her dreams, like one of the few dreams that we learn of, like where he's not just like standing there doing nothing apparently.
Yeah, at the time it's kind of the turning point moment, I think, because it's that and then it goes into a different place.
Yes. So yeah, for the first half, like, he's this, like, sort of celebrity, and, like, he's kind of, like, reveling in the attention, you know, and he's also, like, he finally gets invited to this stupid party that he wanted to get invited to. He's kind of, he kind of learns to, like, revel in it, and then as soon as he's getting into that mode, the dreams take a turn, where, like, he just, like, in these dreams, he just becomes a full-on murderer. He becomes
murderer and rapist, and...
He becomes Freddy Krueger, basically. You know, like, he starts killing people in their dreams. And that's when everything takes a turn, because this causes everybody to, like, view him with, like, hatred and animosity and apprehension, you know, and it gets, like, really out ahead to a point where, like, he's no longer, like, the celebrity, he's a pariah from society.
Oh yeah, he'll be eating in a diner and people there will be like, get out, you need to leave, you're making us uncomfortable. And he's like, no, fuck you, I'm gonna finish my food. And then the guy, like, spits in his face, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And starts a fight with him and stuff. It's like, it's getting really bad. It's basically impossible for him to lead any kind of productive life because he's just become this complete pariah for something that he isn't even really doing. He's just in these people's dreams. And it's interesting because then the PR agency is like, well, none of the stuff we were looking at before is gonna work anymore. Nobody's interested anymore. They're like, but, you know, they love you in France for some reason. They love, like, the character of you. And we could, you know, appeal to different groups and, you know, the alt-right. We could get you on Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, we could get you on Tucker Carlson, yeah. That was brilliant. And yeah, his life starts falling apart to the point where, like, he ends up becoming, like, estranged from his wife.
Yeah, loses his job.
Yeah.
Estranged from his wife. All the opportunities that came before have turned against him. His car gets spray painted. He even shows up to do this thing where, like, basically they're trying to do, like, cognitive behavioral therapy, exposure therapy, which I've done before, which is the idea of, like, you know, if there's something that you're afraid of, like, you know, if you have social anxiety, then I have social anxiety. So my therapist had me, like, get on a bus and then go down to the mall and then come back and do that, like, every day for a while. And then it was like, okay, now you get off the bus and you go into the mall and you walk around for half an hour. And then you walk around the mall for half an hour and you talk to some, like, random people there. You strike up a conversation. And all of these things are designed to, like, normalize the behavior that causes you anxiety or fear.
Sure.
And so there's a group trying to do that with the students that have been having these nightmares about him. And they're having him literally, like, enter the room from, like, it's like a gymnasium, and they're, like, on the other side of the gymnasium. They have him enter and stand in one place and then walk a little bit closer and a little bit closer, but it doesn't work. People are too terrified, they freak out, and it just doesn't work. And everything that he's trying to do to navigate is just not working. He can't get past it. Things just are not working. They're not working for him. And,
yeah, exactly.
I think this is a good time to point out the obvious, which is that Nicolas Cage is a fantastic actor.
Oh, yeah, it goes without saying.
It's the obvious. It's the obvious thing to say. It gets lost sometimes because he's made so many bad movies over the years that, like, sometimes that gets forgotten. But this is a really good example of, like, I don't know if anybody else could have played this role the way, like, Nicolas Cage did. Like, I can't think of anybody else that could have played a character as pathetic, as terrifying as he is in the dream sequences and stuff. When he starts turning and they start showing those dream sequences, he's terrifying, you know, in those sequences. And then also just sad and, like, a really, like, emotional way where it's even funny too. You'd mentioned earlier about the scene where there was a person who worked at the PR firm that had a sex dream about him, and that was the first dream where he wasn't just there.
Yeah.
And he
goes also like the first, like, sex dream, or at least consensual.
Yeah. And he goes and he goes with this woman and to like reenact kind of the scene, and it's like, oh, he's gonna cheat on his wife now, and it's kind of like he's fighting that the whole time. He's like, you know, how far am I gonna let this go to role play this out, and where am I gonna stop it, you know, and am I gonna stop it? And that's like the whole thing that's going on. And then it just starts turning, like, really pathetic. He premature ejaculates, he, like, farts. Just like these really, like, and it's kind of hilarious and really bad, but then his reaction to that after that happens. After he premature ejaculates and farts, when he's in this like nerve-wracking situation where he's uncomfortable, he has this moment where he's like looking at her and he's got so much shame on his face and so much kind of like just depression and dissatisfaction about himself. And I'm like, God, like Nicolas Cage is fucking phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Like how he pulled that off. Like it really impressed me in this little scene that started out as kind of funny and like, you know, making fun of how stupid this character is or how silly this character is, and then like turned it into something kind of like really, really sad. And then, you know, it goes on, like I said, starts to get into the nightmare stuff, and you can see how terrifying Nicolas Cage.
So really, like, the dream stuff is a gimmick in this film. It really is, it's a portrait of a man who's kind of pathetic and his life just falling apart before his eyes.
Yeah.
And it's really exploring that. It's using, like, the dream concept to, like, really do, like, this deep dive character exploration of this man.
To, like, reach into ridiculous territory that, you know, wouldn't make sense without it, you know?
Right. And you can tell because, like, you know, and again, like I said up front, like, the dream stuff isn't, like, they don't really, like, explain it, you know, like, why it started happening, or, like, it abruptly stops, you know, like, after a point, there's a point where, like, his daughter is doing a school play, and they won't let him, like, in the auditorium to watch. They say his presence would upset everybody there. He decides he's going to try and force his way in there anyway. He ends up injuring the teacher at the door. That leads to his you know, apparent divorce and estrangement. That's towards the end of the film. Like, afterwards, we get, like, this weird twist where, like, all of a sudden, there's, like, this new product.
It just cuts to, like, a commercial.
Yeah, it cuts to a commercial. Apparently, like, somehow they figured out how to tap into, like, this phenomena and make a commercial product out of it. Again, it's not explained how that happened. Like, you know, like, some genius tech entrepreneur figured it out, apparently. And it's weird. I'm not sure, like, what the point of that is in the film. I still don't get it. After the fact of thinking about it, it's just funny. And then, like, he's using this technology himself to try and, like, psychically, like, get back in touch with reconcile with his wife, I guess. And the movie shows him, like, you know, visiting her in, like, her dream, using this tech, and they embrace, and, like, the movie just kind of ends there, and I'm just kind of like...
Yeah, well, ends, he says, I wish this was real.
I wish this was real, and then it ends, and I'm kind of like, that's a weird place to end it, I guess, I don't know. Like,
they'd referenced earlier that, like, his wife had this dream scenario in which, movie title, dream scenario in which, she was being rescued by her husband while she was, like, burning at the stake or something, and he's wearing the suit from this old music video.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And that's why he's wearing that really ridiculous suit.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think it was a Talking Heads
just kind of like, I guess I had to end it somewhere. It just, like, felt like a weird place, because it felt like nothing was, like, resolved, but I guess nothing was going to get resolved. I guess that's the point.
Yeah, it's kind of a character study versus, like, a plot.
Right,
heavy movie.
Right, yeah, exactly. It was interesting. It was an interesting film, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good movie because it was funny. It was a comedic movie.
Yes.
But then it also had kind of more to it.
There's comedy and drama. And I also want to say, before the incident and stuff, the dreams, like, end abruptly. When you get to a point where it's, like, showing the commercial for stuff, like, they're in a time where, like, they explicitly, like, say, like, the dreams end, everybody stop dreaming about this guy. Nobody knows why they just ended either. You know? Yeah.
Then he goes to France, the only place that's left for him, but, like, they changed the name of his book about the phenomenon without his consent. I believe he wanted it to be called Dream Scenario. That was the name of the book was supposed to be, but then they changed the name in France to I Am Your Nightmare or something like that.
Yeah. And that's, like, another funny thing, like, he getting his reaction to that.
Yeah.
Not happy, yeah.
Yeah, it's just him not having any power. It's people going like, oh yeah, well, you know, whatever makes you happy, whatever, blah, blah, but then, like, really pushing him in directions that he's not comfortable with. And he gets to France and he thinks, like, oh, I'm gonna be signing books in this, room or whatever, and he's like, oh, that's pretty packed. It's like, oh no, we double book. And that's the other person. You're gonna be in the basement.
Yeah.
And
it's like the fame, like, didn't empower him. It just pushed him into various situations where people just could use and abuse him, you know?
Yeah. that's the movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's just kind of an odd movie, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's good. Like I said, I think it's Nicolas Cage that makes it work.
Yeah,
I just don't think anybody else in that role could have pulled it together.
Right.
To make it hit all the points it needed to hit correctly. And yeah, I think Nicolas Cage, does it here. He's been having a little bit of a career renaissance recently. He was doing so many bad movies for so long, and now he's been kind of having like these weird little phases of his career. He's been doing some horror movies. He's been doing all these weird kind of high concept art movies. It's just nice to see him kind of in a more respectable position again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's because I think it came out a while ago. Like he's no longer in debt, so he's able to because he was doing a lot of movies just to pay down the debt he was in. Because apparently he was a pretty reckless spender in his youth.
Yeah, I think he bought like a dinosaur bones or something.
Yes.
Crazy stuff. Yeah, reckless spending, but it's good to see him doing some good stuff again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's more selective about what he does now just because he doesn't have to like pay off any debt.
Yeah, and he can just do whatever the fuck he wants now,
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
He's taken all sorts of interesting roles, and it'll be kind of cool to see what else he does.
Well, for sure. Always looking forward to good Nicolas Cage content.
Yep. But that is it for this week's episode of OnScreen. Next week, we are going to be talking about part 2 of season 2 of Invincible. Catching us up on what happened last time, Will wasn't too thrilled with the way that the season 2 was turning out at first.
I mean, just all over the place. I mean, I said that in the podcast episode.
Things were coming together for him, and now we're going to see, when the journey is complete for season 2, what Will thinks of the rest of it, as well as what I think of it.
Yeah.
So I matter too, damn it.
You are also a part of this podcast, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be talking about next week. So stay tuned for that. Thank you, everybody, for listening. You can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page, our website, thetotaliscreen.com. If you go to our website and open up a container story for any of the podcast episodes, scroll down to the bottom of that article. You're going to find all of the relevant links to our SoundCloud page, our RSS feed, all of that stuff. It's all there. You can also subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcast client of choice, like Apple Podcasts and Pocket Casts, and the entire backlog of our podcasts, as well as additional content, is available on our YouTube channel. So check that out as well. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the On-Screen Podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.